Hello.
Hi, Harold.
Oh, hi. Okay. Now I hear you.
What's doing? How was Shabbos?
Beautiful. Where were you?
At the beach.
Oh, must have been nice.
Beautiful weather. Gorgeous. Big minion. It's growing.
Oh, really? But only in this time of year, right?
Yeah, I don't know, but combination. Some people have moved in, you know. And
Oh, good.
people have started to retire there, number one. Number two is some crazy people moved in. And then more people have some houses, and I guess it's getting to be summer. So
The
we
Rabbi
over 40 guys for davening Shabbos.
40, wow.
More than 40, yeah.
Impressive. Is the rabbi aggressive over there? He rounds up people.
He's good. He's friendly. He's just very friendly, sweet, you know. He's a good guy. All around, he's a good guy.
Who's he related to? They're always related to somebody else.
Ravnoi. He married a Ravnoi from LA.
Yeah.
So his wife's a Ravnoi. And his father's that famous Lubavitch artist who does kind of that Munchkin art.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
It's not my taste, but everything's very kind of like mushroomy. Everything's like in the shape of mushrooms, you know?
Magic mushrooms?
Something like that. Maybe you need magic mushrooms to appreciate the art.
Doesn't sound so appetizing. What's his name?
Muchnik. So his father is Mechoil Muchnik. Hasidic folk art.
Uh-huh.
But he makes a living being an artist, so go figure.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Not knocking on my door. I hope. Let's see here.
It was there. Brian Dror was there, the Shabbos. That was about it from LA.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Ernie.
Evening.
We're on 69.
Shvutov, Doc.
Yeah. Kenny, I see what you mean.
Tomorrow, there's like a book launch for the sefer that I co-wrote with Rabbi Leber, Kahal Hashem. It's going to be at Young Israel Hancock Park, 8:15 after Ma'ariv. Basically, it's a preview of Yevamos Ayin Daled that we're going to learn this week. The sugya of Tzuadak, and a lot of things in the Gemara that we explain in the sefer. So various people in the community who are interested in Daf Yomi, I think, are attending. And we will teach the Daf Yomi at 9:15. I don't think it's going to be longer than 45 minutes, no longer than an hour, probably less, probably 45 minutes. So we should be over at 9 o'clock. And so,
you want to teach the Daf in person at Young Israel?
Yes, I'm going to teach the Daf in person. I'll bring my computer. So those that want to be at home, whoever, Elazar or whatever is at home can call in on Zoom, but we'll teach it in shul, because if some of the chevra from the Chabura come to the Kahal Hashem shiur, then we can just teach it there.
I won't be able to attend. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to Dodger game. Sorry.
Oh my God! Enjoy. Who are they playing?
Arizona, but I'm taking my whole office. So
Nice.
You can learn the Daf, seventh inning stretch.
on the scoreboard.
Okay, uvas kohen kisiya amana ugrusha. And then the pasuk says, "V'zera ein la," and she doesn't have zera. It means, as a bas kohen, she was eating truma in her father's house, and then she gets married to a pasha to Yisrael, so she stops eating. Now, if her husband dies or divorces her, and she has no children from the Yisrael, she can go back to her father's house to eat truma. Even a grusha. It means it's not totally in whether she can marry a kohen or not. Grusha can't marry a kohen, but that does not affect her ability as a grusha to eat truma as the daughter of a father who is a kohen. So that's an important halacha to know. And then the Gemara darshans. Mi sheyesho almanus v'gerushin bo. That din applies to somebody where there's kiddushin. Yotzu nochri ve'evet she'eno almanus v'gerushin. So there, if a goy or an eved, there's no nesuin by them, so they're excluded from this heter of going back to the father's house to eating truma. So that's by a bas kohen. Ashkechan kohenes, Levi of Yisraelis benon. How do we know that if a Levi of Yisraelis who have relations with a nochri or an eved, they're puzzle from eating truma? Kidom Rav Abba Rav Bas Uvas, right? It says Uvas Koyen. So the Uvas comes to include a Leviah and a Yisraelis in the same dini. Achanami Bas Uvas. Keman Rabbi Kiva, the Dorsh Vavi. Is it only Rabbi Kiva who darshans Vavi? No, Afilu Temer Rabbanon. Kula Uvas Kroyu Seru. That pasuk is a completely extra, and therefore it's taught to teach me that a Levi and Yisrael have the same din, that if an Eved or a Nochri, somebody who doesn't have Kiddushin attached to them, they're puzzled with their Bia. So the Gemara asked the following theoretical question. Ema, mi sheyesh lamanus v'gerushin, but when there's the ability to have Kiddushin, ki leslie zeraka achla, when she doesn't have any children, then she goes back to her father's house. But ki isle zer. But if she had a child from the pasha to Yisrael, the child prevents her from going back to her father's house and eating truma. Loyach. However, mi shein lo amanos v'gerushin bo, like a goy or an eved. Maybe we'll say afagav the isle zera. Maybe the din would be that even with zera from a goy or an eved, nami techel. What we know that there's a din that a bas kohen can go back, but if it's an eved or a goy, no. And now you were marba levi of Yisraelis. So what are you being marba them to? It's got to be that it's usher. However, Rabbi Kiva domain kiddushin toifsim b'chavi lavin. Rabbi Kiva says there is no havaya of kiddushin when there's a lav, when there's a prohibited relation. So umay kisiyel ish zar. When it says if she's going to have relations not with Nesuin, rather through Bia, Kiti Bar, and all of these Mitzri, Adoimi, and Moyavi, and Amoini, all these prohibited relations, if they have Bia with her, it apostles them. And we say a Nochri and Eved is in the same category. So then, Almana Ugrusha Lamali. What do I need the whole pasuk relating to Almana Ugrusha? So, Almana lahachmir aleh, Ugrusha lahakil aleh. What does that mean? Tzricha. Yashmin and Almana, a widow, Almana udechiles zera achla. You know what? When the Bas Kohen marries a Yisrael, and the Yisrael dies and makes her an Almana, then if she doesn't have children, she can eat truma in her father's house. Why? Because an almana is chazia l'kuhuna. Mishum de chazia l'kuhuna. Almana, kohanim can marry an almana. Aval grusha. But if the Yisrael divorced the wife, and the wife goes back to the father's house to eat, maybe that would not be the din. Maybe grusha de lo chazi lekuna ema afal gav de lesle zer lo yachla. Maybe she would not be able to eat truma even without children. So we have to be told, no, a grusha without children can eat truma in her father's house. A grusha, if I'd have been told it did by grusha, it's a grusha who dechi isle zera lo achla. When it's a grusha that when she has children, the child prevents her to eat. Why? Because a grusha can't marry kohen. But an almono can marry kahuna. Ema, maybe we would have a havamina to say, maybe even with children from the Yisrael, she'd be able to go back to her father's house and eat. Tzricha. So we have to be told both polar opposite cases that that they work. The ema nivala l'apostle, when we say that when she has bia with someone who's puzzled to her, maybe it includes af machzer grushaso. We know the din that a husband divorces his wife. He's allowed to marry her again as long as there's been no intervening marriage. But let's say there was an intervening marriage and he still is machzer. She can still, when he dies or divorces her, she can go back to her father's house. Why? This guy's not a zar. She was married to him, so he's not considered a zar. So it's an exclusionary din because of the word zar. Listen, a kohen gadol marrying almana makes her a halal. Well, they weren't a zar meikara either. Maybe a halal should not pasul. No, says the Gemara. It's a refresh take a pasuk. Amar Kra, lo yichalel zaro be'amav, mekish zaro lo. Mahu poisel. Just like the kohen gadol who marries the almana, apostles with bia from kahuna, avzaro nami poisel. So the halal also, who is his zera, apostles. Maybe it apostles only already from this time of kiddushin. Ema mishas avaya. So the Gemara says no. It's got to have bia, nesuin. Do me the kohen gadol b'amana. Ma kohen gadol b'amana with bia. Just because the kohen gadol gives kiddushin to an almana, that doesn't apostle her yet. It has to have bia. Av hainami b'bia. Ve'ima adi ika havaya ubia. Maybe it needs both. Kiddushin and bia. So do me the kohen gadol b'amana. Ma kohen gadol b'amana with bia lechuda. It's only bia that apostles her as a halal. These dinim, all these people, the Amoini, the Mitzri, the Amoivi, who we said pasol, they pasol with bia only. Rabbi Yossi Oimer, so the Mishnah had two other criteria, and the Gemara is going to explain us those criteria. He said, Kol shazaro pasol, if these two people get married, and their progeny are pasol to kahuna, so his bia apostles the wife from eating truma. Kol she'ein zaro pasul, if their child is a kosher child, so his bia doesn't apostle the woman from eating truma in a pasul. So ma ika ben tanakam Rabbi Yossi, what's the nafkamina? Rabbi Yechon mitzri sheni vadomi sheni ika binayu. The Torah says, dor mitzri yavo heina, dor shlishi Yavo. In a third, so you have a Mitzri who converts to Judaism. He's the Dor Rishon. His child is the Dor Sheni. A rabbi would not give Chuppah Kiddushin to a Dor Sheni Mitzri. Now, Dor Sheni has a child. That's a Mitzri Shlishi. Him already you can give Chuppah Kiddushin. It's Yavo Bakal. So therefore, a Mitzri Sheni is an nafkamina for Rabbi Yossi. Because a Mitzri Sheni who has relations with his wife and they have a child, a Shlishi, it's not possible. So therefore his bia, the Mitzri Sheni's bia doesn't possible. But the Tanakama didn't hold of Rabbi Yossi's criteria of looking at the zera of the child. Both the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi, they learned it from the same din. Tanakama Sarama Kohen Gadol B'Amona, Shabi also Bavera, Upoisel. The Kohen Gadol, there's a lav to live with Namona. So the Bia Bavera apostles. Afainami person. There's also Bavera. You're not allowed to live with a Mitzri Sheni. However, Rabbi Yossi suffered Kohen Gadol. Ma Kohen Gadol Shazar apostle Upoisel. Kohen Gadol marries Namona. The child is a Chalal. So his zera is possible. So it's only when the zera is possible that's going to possible. Av kol shazar apostle poisel. La fuke mitzri sheni dein zara poisel. A mitzri sheni who lives with a Yisraelis, and their child is a mitzri shlishi, the zera is not possible. T'chsiv banim asher yivadu lehem dor shlishi yavol lehem b'kal Hashem. Rav Shimon ben Eloi Meir, he gave a third criteria. Kol shatan noise bitoy. If you can marry the daughter, then you can marry the almana. My ikabin Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. Now, how is this different between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? Amar Ula, Ger Amoini Moavi ikabinai. An Amoini who converts to Judaism, he's a Jew, but he cannot marry into Klal Yisrael forever. However, his daughter, an Ammonit, can, because we have the din Ammoni v'lo Ammonit. Moavi v'lo Moavit. It's the psul is only the males. Ushneim lamdu al mikoin gadol b'amona. Rabbi Yossi said, "V'makoin gadol b'amona, shazar apostle poisel." His child is a halal, so therefore his be apostle is the woman of kol shazar apostle poisel. Rashi Gamliel said, "No, makoin gadol b'amona shekol zar apostle poisel. Av shekol zar apostle poisel lafuki amoni moavi. The ankles are apostle." Not all the zera of an Ammoni and Moavi are apostle, because Ammoni v'lo Ammonit, Moavi v'lo Moavit. Some of their zera, if it's female, is not apostle. So since not all of the zera is apostle, their bia doesn't apostle the wife from eating truma. Mishnah. Oines v'amafata, if someone rapes or seduces, v'ashoite, a shoita, gets married with chuppah v'kiddushin. So if he doesn't passel, if he's one of the mitzris or the adoimis or the mamzer or whatever, because he's a shoita, but he also doesn't feed. Let's say if he had chuppah v'kiddushin, if he's a kohen, they ain't kinyan or kinyan. Shoita doesn't have das, so his kinyan's not a good kinyan. Lo poisel v'machil. The main and ruin love of Israel. If these people who raped were seduced were not roy to be married, Ariel Poislin. The bia with the woman apostles are from eating truma. Ketza. Hi Yisrael Shabal Baskoy. The rapee, the oines, or the seducer slept with a bas kohen. So that doesn't stop, and she was eating truma in her father's house. Toichel b'truma. She wasn't nifsal in that bia because they were not psulim. A Yisrael is not apostle. Now, if he married her, he certainly would apostle her. But the one-time bia doesn't apostle her. However, Ibra, if she became pregnant, lo yisoichal b'truma, because we learned the uber always apostles, because we don't know what the uber is going to be. And it's prat lemuberes. She's not kinu ureha beisavia. She doesn't return to her father's house like a nara. Once she's pregnant, it removes her from that category. Nechtacha uber, she undergoes an abortion, and the uber is chopped up. B'meyeha. Toichal. There's no uber anymore. So she can eat right away. Or if she gave birth and the child died, she can eat. Okay. Haya Kohen Shabal Bas Yisrael. A Kohen rapes a Bas Yisrael or seduces a Bas Yisrael. So they're not married. It's not Kinyan Kaspoi. So Lo Soichal B'Truma. Just because he sleeps with her doesn't give her the right to eat Truma. Everybody's with me on this? Yeah. Ibra. However, what if she got pregnant? Lo Soichal, also Lo Soichal. Because we said an Uber never feeds. Now, Yolda Tochal. Once Yilid Beiso, once there's she has a kohen as a child, because even though they were not married, the child is a kohen. The father was a kohen. So Toichal B'Truma, she can eat Truma because of the child. Nimsa Koichel Shel Ben Gadol Mishel Av. This is where the child is stronger than the father. Right? The father, through the Bia, didn't feed her, didn't allow her to eat Truma, just because he slept with her. But the son gets her to eat Truma. So that's what the Mishnah says. Koichel Shel Ben Gadol Mishel Av. Ha'eved poisel mishum Bia. An Eved who has relations with a Bas Yisrael apostles her. But it's because of the Bia. Eino posel mishum Zera. If she had a child, that wouldn't necessarily puzzle her, because there's no yichus to a goy or an eved, as the Gemara will explain. Ketzah Bas Yisrael l'koyin. A Bas Yisrael marries a koyin. Usually, the Bas Yisrael can eat truma. Now, a Bas Koyin marries a Yisrael. She cannot eat truma anymore. Now, Yolda Emenu Ben, and they have a son. Now, if the Bas Yisrael who marries a Kohen has a son, usually the son would be Michael her truma even if her husband passed away. If the Bas Kohen who marries a Yisrael, the son would also prevent her from eating truma. But this Ben goes, he sleeps with a shifcha. The Yolda Hemenu Ben. Now this son has a son, but it's not miyaches after him. Hareze Eved. A child of an Eved is an Eved. Now, in this case, Haise Aim Aviv Bas Yisrael Kohen. So if the grandmother was the Bas Yisrael who married a Kohen, so normally a Bas Yisrael who's married to a Kohen can eat. In this case, Loi Toichal B'Truma. For example, if her husband died, and let's say her son died, and this Eved is the only Zera that's left, there's no yichus, there's no Kohen yichus there, cannot eat. Now, if the grandmother was Bas Kohen Yisrael, right, who normally, if the death of the Yisrael, she goes back to her father's house, she can go back to her father's house. Because if her son died and all there is this grandson who's an Eved, there's no yichus. So she can go back, Toichel B'Trum, at her father's house. It's not considered Zera of Aviv. Now, Mamzer Poisel Umaychil. A Mamzer who has Bia with a Bas Yisrael, she will not be able to eat Truma. But if there's a Mamzer left over as the child, that Mamzer will be able to feed the grandmother Truma. Ketsa, Bas Yisrael Kohen, Bas Kohen Yisrael. V'yaldei menu Bas. They have a daughter. V'halcha Bas v'nisus le'eved ol nochri v'yaldei menu ben. This Jewish girl marries a goy. They have a child. Now, harezeh mamzer. This Tana holds that such a relationship creates a mamzer. We don't paskin that way. We've already learned that. Eved or nochri habal Bas Yisrael. The child is kosher. It's not a mamzer. But according to this Tana, let's say it's a mamzer. And then if the grandmother and the husband died and the bas died, or the bas is still alive, but it's irrelevant. You have this grandson. So if the bas Yisrael was married to a kohen and the husband died, toichel betruma, because she has a child. The mamzer is a mamzer kohen. It's a zera of the kohen. Rashi doesn't say anything beyond what I said. That the mamzer is considered a kohen. And the Rambam says, Bas kohen shenisa Yisrael, or Bas Yisrael shenisa l'kohen v'yalda lo bas, v'nivelas abas lesser lo v'yalda b'menu mamzer. Gam mesa abas, mikol mokam mamzer nechshav kizaro shalem imo, she'imu zara mikoyen oicheles betruma. Amazing din. Im imo Bas Yisrael l'koyen, toichel betruma. Bas kohen l'Yisrael, so then the child is considered a Yisrael and prevents the bas kohen from going back to her father's house and eating truma. Kohen gadol, pamim shu poisel. Even a kohen gadol, sometimes he'll passel. How could a kohen gadol passel a woman from eating truma? Bas kohen Yisrael. There's a bas kohen who normally eats truma in her father's house and marries a Yisrael. So now she stops eating. The yolda emenu bas. They have a daughter. V'alcha bas v'nisas l'koyen. This daughter goes and marries a kohen. The yolda emenu ben. Now the grandson is a kohen. I raise a royally or kohen gadol. Nothing wrong with such a grandchild. He's a kohen. Maichilas imoy. If the the grandmother didn't have a child who was a kohen. This is a new chiddush. He had a grandson as a kohen. Any child that would be a kohen for this grandmother is enough to feed her truma. Upoisel aim imoy. Now, but Michael is imo. Oh, I'm sorry. The mother, the bas, who married a kohen, of course, if the kohen dies, this bas was left with a child who's a kohen and was allowed to eat truma. But remember, the bas kohen, the grandmother married a Yisrael that prevents her from eating truma if she has a child. And this child, even if it's a kohen, is a zera of the Yisrael, is a grandchild of the Yisrael. So it would passel the emi moy. Zoy so meres loy kivni kohen gadol, shu poislani min truma. This is not like my son, the kohen gadol, who passeled me, the grandmother says, from eating truma. The Mishnah likes this unusual case. Tanina lahadeton rabban. We learned the following in a baraisa. Shoyte v'katan shenosu noshim. Shoyte v'katan married women and they died. And they had other wives. The wives, there's no chlitza, no yibum, because their marriages were not considered marriages. They have no das. Ketza. Hi Yisrael Shabal Bas Kohen. You have Yisrael who raped a Bas Kohen. So she's living in her father's house. Toichel b'truma. The one-time bia with the Yisrael doesn't prevent her from eating truma in her father's house. If she became pregnant, lo soichel, like every uber. So kiven dibra lo soichel. Gemara says, why immediately after she had bia do we allow her to eat? Lecha shema ibra. Maybe she got pregnant right away. Milo tnan mafrish lo son shloisha chadoshim shema mubar saying. Don't we always say we separate them for 3 months because maybe they're pregnant? We don't know who the father's going to be unless you separate. And if somebody new wants to get married. But but the possibility that because of their bia, they would be pregnant, they weren't choishish. Person gives his wife, he's a kohen, a get al tnai, and says it should take effect an hour before my death. So asur lechol b'truma miyad. The get starts right away because we don't. You might die in an hour, and she stops eating truma right away. So we are choishesh for death. To be mavchin between one father and the other father, they were choishesh. But by rape or seduction, because women take precautions. Baskoyan, who was eating truma in her father's house, marries a Yisrael, and then the Yisrael dies. Toivelis voichelis betruma la'erev. She can go back and eat truma at her father's house that night. So we're not choishish for pregnancy. The first 40 days when it's Maya Ba'alma, we're not choishish. Because for 2 reasons. If she's not pregnant, she's not pregnant, it's not a problem. And even if the Ima Abrad Arbain Maya Ba'alma, up until 40 days, it's not really a pregnancy. So either way, Armali Abai Yachem and Seifa Hooker Uber B'Me'ea Temo Kokelis L'Mafreya. Once they recognize the fetus, her pregnancy, we should go backwards and say that everything she touched is a problem. And it was with Aveira. Yeah, going back up until the first 40 days, there's no problem. After 40 days, there's a problem. Itmar. There used to be 6 months between Kiddushin and Nisuin. Not like us, where we do this chuppah of a Kiddushin, we do Kiddushin and Nisuin right away, same time. So he gave her Kiddushin, and then he paid a visit to his wife. He was not allowed to, and he slept with her in her father-in-law's house. Rav Amar Havlad Mamzer. We do not believe that if she has a vlad, that it's from him. Ushmuel Amar Havlad Shisuki. We don't know who the father is. It's called a Shisuki. We quiet whoever. We don't know what his yichus is. It's not borrowed. Amar Rav Mistaver Milsa de Rav the Daimi Me'almo. If she was suspected of fooling around to the rest of the world, fine. Avalod Daima Me'alma Basra Didesha Dinanle. If this girl did not have a reputation of fooling around, we should throw the fatherhood to the guy who gave her Kiddushin. Amar Rav Menamin Allah. Diktani Yalda Toichal. Our Mishnah said that once the Kohen lived with the Yisrael and she was pregnant, during the pregnancy, she cannot eat. Once she gives birth, she can eat because of the son. However, if this girl had a reputation of fooling, Yalda Mai Toichel, who cares that she gave birth? Maybe it's not hers. Elalav Mine Daima Velo Daima Me'alma. They were suspected maybe of fooling around with each other, but not to the rest of the world. In that setting, Oinus umafate. It's also prohibited to do that. He's usher and everybody's usher. The same amount. Yeah, so what did we say in that case? If a kohen raped a Bas Yisrael and she gives birth, she can eat truma. Listen, the guy who gave her kiddushin, he's permitted to live with her eventually. So lo kol shekain that we should be miyachas the child after the boil, I mean after the arus, the guy who gave her kiddushin. Even if there's no chashash to other people, and we connect them to them, still our Rav says the Vlad is a mamzer, my timer. The Amrina, she did something so ugly to sleep in her father's house with her arus, means the afkar nafshel lagabi arus afkar nafshel alma. She's going to be prone to sleep around, and therefore we have to treat the child as a mamzer. Now, our Mishnah, which allowed if a kohen raped a girl, that the moment she gave birth, she could eat truma shayushneim chavushim. It's an unusual case. They were both in prison with each other. She couldn't sleep with anybody else. But otherwise, we would say it's not his. Other people learn. If they both agree and admit that they slept together, and he admits to it, so everyone, the child is his. It's not a mamzer. And Arusa who became pregnant. Rav Amar Vlad mamzer. Ushmol Amar Vlad shesuki. And Amar Rav mistaver milsa de Rav de lo daimi minei v'daimi ma'almo. Rav is talking about when she had a reputation. Now, let me read you the halacha. Arusa shenisabra v'esavia. Well, first of all, Arusa shenisabra v'hi v'esavia. Arusa got pregnant living in her father's house. V'hi omer shemino arusi sabra. And she says, it was my husband who slept with me. V'hu mod, and he admits. Or he's not there. Or he says, I don't remember. As long as he doesn't dispute here of Vlad kosher, Vlad's going to be a fine Vlad. Now, if she got pregnant in her father's house and the Oros does not admit that he slept with her, then it's a Vadai Mamzer. Now, if the event doesn't happen in front of us, we can't ask her, or she says, I don't know who it was, then it's a Suffolk Mamzer, which is worse. At least a Mamzer can marry another Mamzer. A Suffolk Mamzer, we don't let him marry anybody. If rumor was out that this girl was sleeping around with everybody, and even though in this case, the guy who gave her kiddushin admits that he slept with her Vlad Suffolk Mamzer. If they check and she says, I was only at relations with my Orus, the Vlad is kosher. We pass it like Shmuel. The Rajba holds that the Rosh of the Rajba hold that if he admits, the Vlad is kosher. Very interesting halacha. So tonight I encourage everybody to go to hear Rav Rimon